We are in. Welcome back. It is the Tuesday night ride with Chevy and Nasty. We're live wherever you're joining us. Thank you for being here. It's me, Randy Chevrier. The man to, I guess, my right would be Sheldon Nasty Napashik. Sheldon, how's it going, man?
It's going, man. It's going. It is. I'll tell you, Chev, it's been an eventful few days. As you know, this weekend we celebrated my big 5-0.
We're going to talk about that.
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yep.
We had a major storm in Calgary.
We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that. And I've watched zero football all weekend long, but I've been following some of these stories. The Olympics have still got me fascinated with, little stories. Some of the stories that we started bringing up like a week, 10 days ago are still big in the news and evolving. So I think we'll talk about that. What's going on with you though, Chev?
Same kind of thing. I went back to Montreal last week amidst a little impromptu getaway with Brittany and myself. We went to visit my sister. I did catch a CFL game, and that was the Thursday night game between the Bombers and the Lions. And I tell you what, the Lions did not look good. We'll talk about that. And then, spent some time in Montreal with family. Got back today. I didn't know if we were going to be able to land today with everything that was going on last night. I was really nervous as to what I was coming home to, just like you were after your weekend away. But let's take our break. Let's get the splitter going. We're brought to you by Performance Freight Management and WeDrone. It's the ride with Chevy and Nasty, and welcome all to the show. Rob Evans asked, what's with that stuff on my face? Whenever I get a few days off, obviously being in the fire service, we have to be clean shaven to perform our duties. Even though I actually don't go to the fires and I don't have to wear an SCBA anymore, still, it's part of my uniform that I have to be clean shaven. So any opportunity I get to grow it out, I grow it out. By tomorrow morning when I'm back to work, I will be clean shaven again.
Is that how it grows out though? Because it looks like you're working the handlebar mustache.
No,
were you trying to see how far you could get along there? Because I'm seeing right there.
Well, see, what you're seeing here, Sheldon, is the signs of aging. Now, you just turned 50, right? And you got the grays going here. I got the grays going here on my beard, and here I'm still dark. So it kind of gives the appearance that I'm growing out a handlebar, but it's all one growth. There's a lot of gray. I noticed there's a lot. Every time I grow it out, I'm like, wow, there's more gray. And that's just the way it is. So, Sheldon, before we get to graying and aging and everything we're going to talk about in the first segment, I think we should get right into the poem. What do you think?
Let's do it, Chev. We are your 300-pound poets. The boys are back in the seats. It's time for the ride, your Tuesday night treats.
As my good buddy Sheldon turned 50, he still has great hair. Look at that hair.
A little great.
He can be a pretty nasty dude, but he's still a big old teddy bear.
With golf ball size hail, we had a vicious hailstorm. These types of events in Calgary, unfortunately, have become the norm.
In the CFL, the Trey Ford gamble paid off for the Elks. While the Stamps made a fourth quarter comeback, the Lions seemed rather toothless amidst the Bombers' attack. I don't think any of that rhymed. I think I read it wrong.
And Canada can sure throw a hammer. We got men's and women's gold. I just saw that today. That's awesome. Yep. Hearing our national anthem, to me, never gets old.
Lots to unpack on this 37th episode. Some weeks we are a little tired, but this ride is never slowed. Except in that one stanza. I got lost there.
I don't know. I thought it worked.
I tried to add something to it and I screwed it up. It should have been, fourth quarter comeback rhymes with Bombers attack. Yeah. But I added something else there and I just went off.
Yeah.
Rob asked me if I'm going to be there for the water fight next week. Not too sure, Rob. So what's going on next week? This is awesome. At the Easter Seals camp out in Kananaskis, little plug for the Calgary Firefighters Burn Treatment Society, and actually the Alberta firefighters, it's Edmonton and Calgary Burn Treatment Societies. They get together and kids that have suffered burn injuries and are burn survivors. They do a week-long camp where they get to do a whole bunch of activities, and just it's a free camp for these kids. It's awesome where burn survivors can come together. They can open up about their experiences. It's really neat. And I think it's next Wednesday, they do this huge water fight where Calgary Fire sends trucks, Redwood Meadows, which is where Rob Evans is the chief, they send one of their water tenders. Edmonton sends trucks, and we have trucks from all over filling a huge bucket of water, and we have a water fight with the kids. It's one of the coolest things we did. I did the last 2 summers. I'm not sure if I'm going to be there next week because I am on holidays, and I'm not sure if I'm in town, but that is a big event, and it's a great event for those kids. So thanks for bringing that up, Rob. I think that's awesome, and thank you for all of you for showing up tonight on the ride. I'm a little under the weather, Sheldon. I went to Montreal, had a great time, visited family. It was a very quick in and out. I got there basically Friday morning, flew on the red eye overnight. Got there with Brittany. We got to hang out with my sister. As you guys know, many of you listen, my sister had a tragedy over the Christmas holidays. We lost her brother-in-law. And so I went back in June to help her move. And then we went back this week just to hang out with my sister, have some fun with her, take her out one night.
And you got sick?
Yeah, one of my nieces had a little bit of a cold, and I think I gave her too many hugs. So I I have a little bit of a cold.
So when did it kick in? Did you get a few good days, or is it one of those things you kind of stepped off the plane and started feeling it right away?
No, so Friday we were fine, Saturday we were fine, and we had big days, like a lot of walking around Montreal. We had just a lot of good days. It was Sunday night. I was at my mom's house for dinner, and right when dessert came, I started feeling it. And just been getting progressively worse. And today, when the airplane kind of lowered into the clouds in Calgary with all the weather systems we've been having, you know how that affects me. I get migraines, and right when we got into this I don't know, lower high pressure system, I think it's low, I just felt my whole head just like clog up. I probably sound a bit congested, but you know what? The ride must go on, Sheldon. And I didn't know what I was going to come back to. This hailstorm that we had, I heard about it. My son was in California, texted me yesterday. He's like, Dad, you got to call your neighbor and find out if your car's okay and if your house okay. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm in Montreal. I'm just chilling. And then I look on Twitter and I see just like Hailmageddon.
Yeah. That was something else. And I mean, we've had a few of these over the years. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. Northeast Calgary got absolutely hammered. But we're usually spared in the Northwest where I live, and you live as well. But yeah, you take a look at some of these shots. That's a toonie. A toonie's about this big. Those are getting close to baseball size, somewhere between golf ball and baseball size. In Evanston, the community I live in, we were getting egg-sized hail. Now, of course, I'm away in Kukanusa. Like I said last week, my happy place. I'm there, no cares in the world. We're having a great time in the water, and all of a sudden, our phones start getting lit. Actually, it wasn't the night of the storm. We heard there were storms, but then around 7 o'clock in the morning the next day, our phones start going bing, 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 and it's like nobody texts us at 7 in the morning on vacation, especially on my birthday. My wife loves to sleep in.
Right.
We're like, we're like checking it out and get it going on the socials and seeing it as, oh my God, that's kind of bad. Our neighbor runs by the house and says, you know what? I think you guys are fine. You got some siding damage, but I think you guys are going to be okay. We're like, all right. And that was this morning. And as we're sitting there saying, okay, well, let's stick it another couple of days. I was going to do the show from the trailer tonight. It was going to
you were awesome. Right.
I was going to do the show from the trailer. And then this afternoon around 1 o'clock, another neighbor goes right into our backyard. He's looking out. He goes like, hey, Shelly, your window's cracked, man. Your window is gone. I'm like,
oh, God. No.
I'm like, which one? Upstairs on the right. I said, it's my bedroom, one of my bedroom windows. So he sends me the shot, and I'm like, oh, God. I just turned 50. I'm in my absolute happy place. The weather's looking good for 2 more days. But when your house is leaking, it's still raining in Calgary, we made the decision to drive all the way back. And Chev, when we got into our neighborhood,
how bad was
Armageddon?
No way.
So it got worse as it traveled through. So it started. We got the big marbles of golf balls. As it went into Evanston, they got bigger. But even my next door neighbor, awesome guy, beautiful black Audi car. And his windshield is shattered.
Just destroyed.
Him and his son are out there just spraying off the leaves and the branches and the trees and all the other damage. But yeah, cars up and down the street are just, dented and his windshield's shattered. It was horrible. Yeah,
Now,
that's my window right there. Looking at
oh,
that, that's not my window, but that's what my window looks like. Thank
no
God,
way.
double pane, triple pane. It didn't go all the way through in mine, but still holes in the window, like the vinyl around your windows that hold it in, holes everywhere. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's just pelted. Trey said he had some video. Trey, do you have some video of the hailstorm that you put together for this? Is that something we can get up? I know you said you might have it. If not, I was coming back. Well, I saw the video of the airport, right?
The airport.
Yeah. So when you get a chance, put that video up and I'll stop talking. But I came back. Last night I'm looking at the airport leaking and water and ceiling tiles coming down, and I thought, oh geez, you know what? This is going to be a nightmare getting home because flights would be delayed, and my girlfriend still had to go to Red Deer after we landed. Right, she still had an hour and a half, and we were quite worried.
It's not just the shape of the airport, Chev. There's something like 16 or 17 WestJet planes that were damaged
and
that
sent
are out of
for
commission.
repairs. Yeah,
and they have to go through a thorough inspection. Right? You
Yep.
can't have little hairline fractures on the frame of an airplane that's pressurized flying at 40,000 feet. So there's things like disasters like this cost a lot of money. And what does that do? You pull 16 planes out of a fleet, and that's just WestJet, right?
Yeah.
You are fortunate to get back. Thunderstorms only last, like I guess it was like a 10-15 minute affair, right? But
well, I feel very fortunate one that we were flying in the day after and not flying out the day after, because you never know, right? We had our little show about the Boeing 737s, and I did fly in that Dreamliner today. Holy, what an airplane!
Did you? Yeah, wow,
what an airplane! My God, it's beautiful. But like the windows, you don't pull down the window shade; you press a button and it polarizes it to how close. Like it was just. Like it was a fancy airplane, but anyways, very fortunate that was flying in. Also, I'm going to thank Thursday Night Randy for calling his buddy at the last second to drive him to the airport rather than parking my car at the airport.
Oh yeah,
my van would have been destroyed. My van would have been destroyed. Yes, thank you, Amanda, for asking. Brittany did make it home safely. We got to my house. She picked up her car, and we left right away. And that being said, as we were driving back from the airport tonight, we were heading around the Stony Trail. I could see all the homes on the south side of Stony as they faced north, all plastered and pelted with hail damage. When I got home, very lucky, no damage to my vehicle. I don't have a garage, so I have a carport that I park on. Both mine and Brittany's vehicles were fine, so we didn't get it. It appears that it hit the north of the city and just traveled across kind of that Stony Trail corridor, and which nailed your area and the airport and all that. But yeah, super happy that one. I also booked an earlier flight. I learned from last trip to Montreal where I did the car like O.J. Simpson in the back of the van. This time I decided to come in earlier so that I could be at home seated for the show. But yeah, that hailstorm had me worried, and I really feel badly for you guys that you come home to that. So what do you do now? You got to call insurance. Did you already put in a claim?
I think Matt is on there right now trying to see if we can put in a claim online or get the process started, because it's a huge queue and everybody's saying like you're not going to see anything for 6 months. Maybe they'll get an inspector and adjuster out there.
Now my understanding is people are still getting their hail damage repaired from 2 years ago. The huge hailstorm that they had in Skyview Ranch.
Yeah.
So
it's a long process. It's a long process.
So in the meantime, you got to board up the windows that are broken and get some of that fixed up.
Yeah, basically make sure you're the worry for me though is like once the water comes in, right? Like you look at a house, you don't think about a house. Hey, the glass isn't broken only on one of them. But what about all those other little holes in there? Like once you've got holes in the siding and water starts pelting in there, where does it go?
Yeah.
Does it go to Magic Fairyland where it evaporates, or does it seep into my walls somewhere? Does it seep into the floors or the joists somewhere, further down, right? So those are all the things we're going to figure out. But we're not the first people that this has happened to.
Yeah.
We're certainly not going to be the last people, right?
Yeah.
So I guess at this point, this is where you got to practice what you preach. Do your research, trust the process, make the calls, just get it handled, and keep going on, because you know what? Nobody got hurt here. Nobody died.
Yeah.
Family safe. Yeah, sure. They're beautiful. Some beautiful cars got some smashed up windows, but we'll deal with that over time. So
yeah,
it's what do you do?
And it's very interesting because depending on where you are in the city and even in and around Calgary, like if you're in downtown Calgary, completely missed it. Rob Evans says he was in
Yeah.
Cochrane. It rained, but no hail. Down in Mossley, down where Daryl
Yeah.
lives, he had a huge hailstorm, ripped the tin right off some of his roof, right? And he mentioned that WestJet Distribution Center it got flooded because the hail blocked the drain. So a lot of damage, right? it's
Yeah.
it's nuts. And yeah, I saw that one a couple of years ago in Skyview Ranch. Fortunately, I missed this one. I mean, I've been lucky and spared, but yeah, I guess you got to deal with it. Like you said, not the first, not the last. We are the ride. Chevy and Nasty here. We're gonna switch gears because before Sheldon came back to the hail, he was celebrating his 50th birthday. Sheldon, first of all, heartfelt happy birthday from me, buddy. I texted you yesterday in our group chat, but then today I gave you a little private one. I am really happy that we reconnected a couple of years ago, and now like we're into our 37th episode, but I'm
Yeah.
happy that I got to kind of be part of your life while you're hitting your 50th birthday. It's pretty awesome. First of all, congrats. It's a milestone birthday. I know last week you said not a really big deal, but it is a big deal. It's a big deal. And so I know you were in Kukanusa, but what'd you guys do to celebrate
Well,
exactly?
First of all, I was wrong. It is a huge deal. Like
Yeah.
they don't tell you this, and I probably shouldn't be letting this out of the bag, but that morning you turn 50, poof, everything. You see it. You see it clearly. You understand things guys like yourself will never understand until you turn 50. So
Yeah.
I am now, intellectually and morally superior
You're
to
enlightened.
yourself, Chev. It's
You're
amazing.
enlightened.
Yeah. No, I mean it's great. I mean it's something to celebrate, but it's something I didn't want to put a whole lot of pressure on. Right. I didn't want to say, okay, we're gonna go to Rome, we're gonna go to Vegas, we're gonna go travel somewhere I've never been or somewhere I always wanted to see. I was like, you know what? It was almost like, not that if the end of the world was coming, but if the end of the world was coming, well, where would you want to be? I want to be with the people I love and doing exactly what I want to do. And 50 is definitely not the end of the world. And in fact, it was pretty awesome. So I just wanted to be on the beach with my feet in the sand.
Which you were
the most beautiful place in the East Kootenays, and I was. And I was lucky enough too that I a listener on the show, and I don't think he's here tonight, but Jamin Dahmer, I think he's a little worn out from the trip, came down and spent a couple of days in Kukanusa with us.
Nice.
And it was amazing. And the first thing that happened is a good friend of mine, Brian and Tamahal, they're awesome people we've been camping with for years, come down the deck, and I'm like, hey, Brian, come here. I want to introduce you to somebody. He's like, hey, happy birthday, Sheldon. Oh, hi, Jamin. Within 30 minutes of being down there on the docks and getting on boats and all that stuff, he ran into 3 people that he knew from Calgary.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so it was like one of these things where it's just this big family community get together. Everybody that I wanted was there except for you and the guys I couldn't get down there, obviously.
Yeah.
Right? But it was amazing.
Well, I'm very happy you had that, and you
know what I walked away from those, Chef?
Yeah, go.
If I got one piece of wisdom, and let's see, I don't want this to be like a New Year's resolution.
No,
that doesn't go anywhere. But it really got me thinking. Okay, that is the 50-year mark, the halfway point, if you're lucky. Yeah. Well, what do I have to start doing now? To really make sure that the next 50, I accomplished a lot of amazing things in the first.
Mm-hmm.
But am I getting complacent? Am I getting lackadaisical? Am I taking things, situations, people for granted? And what can I do now since I've kind of at that mark where I should have accumulated some more wisdom and knowledge and some more things to pass on to my kids? And here's my takeaway from sitting there with my toes in the sand. One, health. You know what? I'm going to go check in with my doctor a little bit more often, and I'm going to go instead of talking about how I used to train and all my training techniques, get back to working out a little bit more. Get back to eating a little bit healthy. I don't know if you noticed, Chev, I played football at 287 pounds. I'm 292 pounds today. And the distribution's changed, right? But I look around, I'm like, geez, what? It's because I haven't done anything yet. Why don't I challenge myself over, the next year to start saying, let's start making this next 50 the best it can be. Number 2, let's take on a few new challenges and make sure I'm still learning. So my boy and I picked up a chessboard, and on the one day we're there, it was raining, but we played like 7 games of chess under the gazebo. It was awesome playing chess outdoors with your son, a game I hadn't played since I was 12.
No way.
And it was fun. And it's kind of fun to spark ideas and think about new challenges. And then, so it was a good chance to reflect on what I've done to this point, but to remind myself that there's still a lot more to do. And this is a good benchmark landmark to really re-challenge yourself, go out there and make sure that, I still wreak some havoc and make some things happen.
Absolutely. And I think that's important, right? It's reinventing yourself. It's doing things that uh not only support the goals of you and your family, but also fulfill you, right? Like
Yeah.
you've done a lot in your lifetime. And I was going to ask you some of your milestones, and I'm sure between your football career, your family, your career transitions, you have a ton of milestones and accomplishments that make you who you are. But now, like you said, the next 50, you want to try a few things. You want to do some things, like kind of like, again, we always talk about it. It's like why we did the show is to give us something that we could build in our next decade or 2 decades of life. And I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome that you had that time to reflect, to go put your toes in the sand, be with the people, but also think about those things. Anything else that kind of came from this weekend of just saying, hey, this is my weekend,
Yeah.
well, anything else come from it?
The reason I started talking about like Jamin and the connections and people that he hadn't seen for those years, it just really hits home that, again, what life is, even at 50, is really just a collection of the stories you have to tell and the people that like
Yeah.
earlier. Daryl writes in 37th episode, name me a number 37 in the CFL. Yeah, Mark Calixte.
Yeah.
Hell, we should call Mark Calixte.
Yep.
And
we tried once.
Yeah,
but
we did. We should try him again.
Yeah.
But it really is about the people that are around you, and yeah. So that's it. I don't know if I'm any wiser or anything like that, but it was actually a real awesome opportunity to just sit out there and think, and it was amazing.
And a lot of our listeners are in their 50s, in their 60s, some in their late 40s, like myself. A few guys in their 30s.
We have 70s and 80s too, bud.
Yeah, like everyone, right? And we have that range, and we have some young guys like our intrepid producer Trey. But the main thing, I think, the recurrent theme is health. And as you get to our age, you really got to take control of your health. And it's not just you mentioned a few things. It's starting to get workouts and starting to do something that gets you moving and stuff, but also checking in on the things that you can't necessarily see or feel. And you said it. Go check in with your doctor. Go make sure that you're on top of those appointments. I know we talk about it often, but I think we have to keep reminding folks, right? We have to keep reminding folks. If I'm gonna say something here, I didn't know when we were gonna put it in the show, but I don't know if Trey can pull it up. But we lost one of our listeners this week, in his 50s. Good friend of mine, Captain Lloyd Wire. He's a great firefighter friend of mine. I'm just going to pull something up here. So Lloyd was at our men's mental health event a few weeks ago. He's 57 years old. Lloyd was an awesome guy. I worked with him on the floor. He was my captain, or one of the captains I worked with. Then he was off the floor for a few health reasons. He was doing recruitment, so we did a lot of events together. We hung out. He loved rock music. He loved Superman. He loved Slurpees. He always had a Slurpee. Like, he was a really awesome guy. And his favorite band is his favorite. What The Alarm. His favorite band was The Alarm. Have you ever heard of them? It was an 80s rock band. I'm just reading off some stuff that one of our good buddies wrote, because I know him and we shared a love of music and superheroes. And he loved movies like Conan the Barbarian, Rock. He was just a great dude. And he was at our event, and he loved our event, and he loved our show. Lloyd was one of those guys that listens to our show, watches our show, but you won't see him on the comments. But every time I bump into him, he's like, "Oh, I listened to your show the other night. It was great." And I was in Montreal when we got the call that we lost him. And yeah, it's very sad, but it also brings home the fact, like, he was 57.
Yeah.
I went to Montreal. I saw my brother. My brother's 57. My brother isn't in the greatest shape. He's like, I'm always trying to motivate him to get like to do, to take better care of himself, because you're not just taking care of yourself for yourself, but it's also the people around you. Like, for you, it's your family, your friends, people that love you, the people you love. And same for me, my boys, my girlfriend, and all that. And when I think about people like my brother, it's, my nieces, my mom. And so we all have these connections. That's almost our responsibility to take care of ourselves going into that next decade that you're going to. So I appreciate your message tonight, because again, having heard, the news on Monday about my buddy Lloyd, and knowing, some of the things that are going on with the people that we both love and know, taking care of our health is the number one thing, right? And then we can use that to continue doing all these exciting things we want to do. Like you said, raise some hell, kick some ass, take some names, right? Like that's the next 50, but you can only do that if you're able to do it, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So
I'm sorry to hear about Lloyd. Yeah. You just mentioned it right before the show, and that's a tough one, man. I get it. I mean, that's a tough one, man.
It was a big shock to everyone. I have to say, a lot of guys were still processing it. Like I said, I heard Monday night, and it was like, the last time I saw him was at our event. He was there. He brought his whole fire crew down, and that was awesome. That was like, I think we talked about it. It's like sometimes people support you, but you don't know. And to see a whole crew from a station come for an event, and we said it. Remember, we were like, oh yeah, like talking to a group of strangers sometimes is easier than talking to your peers. Well, that was one of those situations where I was like, I didn't know how to feel, but yet here's this guy that was a little intimidated that he was in the crowd, supporting us. And he was one of our people.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you what too, with just bringing in another comment. Ernie's like, sorry, the hailstone put a damper on your birthday party. Ernie, I've got you. I've got Chev. We've got each other. And I think Chev lost a good one this week. The hailstorm didn't put a damper on anything. It's a minor inconvenience. Let's just take care of the people that we love and be thankful for those that we have with us still. And my heart goes out to you and Lloyd's family. It's a rough one.
Yeah. Well, listen, let's take a break here. We're The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. You can follow us on all our socials, at Chevy and Nasty, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, Twitter, whatever, Spotify. You can follow us all there. Please like and subscribe to our show. We're starting to put more episodes on Spotify. Every once in a while, we're going to drop even an old episode. So that's something that's in the works right now. We're brought to you each week by Performance Freight Management and WeDrone. We'll take a little break, and when we get back, we'll talk a little bit of the Olympics, I believe.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Well, I'm back. Sheldon's going to be in. Bruno says, yo, for all of you that are joining us here on The Ride, which, you know what? You're 50 years old.
It's a birthday boy's prerogative.
You've earned the right. You've earned the right. It's The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. Every Tuesday night we go live. We read your comments on the air. So thank you again. Thank you for all the wishes for Lloyd Wire and his family. I'll be sure to pass on the message to some of the guys that might be listening tonight. Sheldon, you mentioned chess with your son and Kukunusa just taking on a new challenge. And it was funny because my boys have been in California for the last week and a half with their mom. And, teenage boys, they don't often respond to texts and phone calls. And I try to call, I used to try and give these long messages. Hey, I love you, blah, blah, blah. And I'd always get like 1-word answers. But what I've been connecting with my one son, Kyle, is on Cup Pong. So they have these games that you do on the iPhone, and we've been playing this long-running game of Cup Pong and all these games. So that's how I'm connecting with my son.
There
even
you go.
Far away. Some I guess games on text. So if any of you want to try it and challenge me to some cup pong or any games on the phone, please feel free. There are games, I think, on the iPhone. Maybe they do it on Android too, but it's kind of fun. And so we take turns, and it just sends via text. So it's kind of, technology is amazing.
Yeah, there you go.
So
shout out to Kurt Panyo. Kurt, thanks for joining us tonight, and
Yeah.
appreciate the birthday wishes. It was a little eventful and a little shocking to say the least, but yes, it was great. Thanks for that.
Yeah. So we went a little long last segment. We wanted to pay proper homage to your birthday, and you know what? It just turned out to be that's where we talked about the passing of Lloyd, but we also talked about the hailstorm. Now we want to transition to the Olympics. Sheldon, is this Canada's best Olympics ever? Would you say?
It was certainly on track for it. I mean, our women were kicking ass early on. Like again, I've been unplugged for the last 5 days, just catching up now. So before, when I left, we were in 9th. No, we slipped to 11th.
Yeah.
No, it's not our best Olympics. But actually 18 total. Yeah, you know what? I mean, that seems fair. But what I'm impressed about so much in this one is our not just our women, but largely our women. We're medaling in events, gold medaling in events that we never have before. The hammer throw, men's and women's.
Yeah, that's
what's
pretty
going
cool.
on with our program. Judo, swimming.
Summer McIntosh, she's the golden girl, right? Like Summer McIntosh, she like 3 golds right now. That's amazing. And then we have you mentioned the hammer throws. It's been awesome. Like
so do you get excited about that stuff? Like, it's one of those things. Do you, like, for me personally, for 4 years, 3 years in 11 months, I don't think about the Olympics. Like, I really don't. I'm not one of those guys to follow the careers of these athletes outside of it. I catch the ads. I love the campaign Own the Podium, and I was like kind of cynical if that would work years ago when we tried to start really upping our game in both the Canadian and Summer Olympics. But like, when you see the Chev, do you kind of does it give you that sense of national pride? Do you find you get kind of excited about swimming in a way you never have before?
Not necessarily about the sport, but the athletes. I feel really good for them because I think, you look at the US, you look at Russia, you look at China, you look at Japan, all those countries, they fund their athletes so well. And that's why they medal so highly. Like, again, if you look at that medal count again, the US, I believe, is right up on top. And, USA, who's that? China, Australia, France, right? Like, they fund their athletes so well. And then Canada comes in, we're the nice neighborly country that we don't really have a huge population. We compete, we're friendly, we're feisty, but our athletes are really on their own. And so when you have an athlete like, especially a hammer thrower, like, it comes out of nowhere, you feel really good for those athletes because you know how hard they work. Like, just to get a sponsor for some of our athletes is impossible. When they get carded, they barely make any money. A lot of them are self-funded, and they're doing everything they can to bootstrap their Olympic careers, right? And I seen it, especially in Calgary. I know so many of the Winter Olympians, a lot of bobsledders in the fire department, and their life is struggle. Like, training is hard, and the financial aspect of being an Olympic amateur athlete is struggle. It's not like being in the US where you're funded to like immensely.
And you're saying that hasn't gotten better.
Yeah. And no, it hasn't gotten better. So when you see these athletes, right, I feel good for them. I love hearing the national anthem, as we mentioned the poem, but it still makes me a little bit like, why don't we have the ability to fund them? And then, we give them the Canadian bacon Lululemon color scheme. Yeah, from far, it definitely looks like they're wearing bacon on their uniform. So does it make me rah Canada? A bit, but it's more because I understand that these athletes, to get that medal, to be in a position like for Summer McIntosh, as we talked about last week, to be in a position to be so dominant, she really has to be special. She really has to be a special.
But she had to, even in a case in point, she had to move to Florida.
Yeah.
Right. Like Canada, like during COVID, we shut down everything.
Yeah.
Right. And she didn't. So, I mean, you think about all the athletes that lost an opportunity to train during that period of time, but she went down to Florida and was training with the the former women's gold medal leader in a place where you could still get in the pool and go swimming and go train.
Yeah.
She had to move to another country to get a gold medal for Canada. But I wondered, was Canada funding that, or where did she get her sponsorship from? I guess after Rio, she probably has so much attention that she was able to find sponsorship to help support.
Well, when you're a carded athlete, you get some money, but I mean, to like a swimmer like her versus a swimmer in the United States producing the same results, it's night and day. Like someone getting gold medals in the US, she's making millions of dollars in endorsements. That just doesn't happen here, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I get the pride, the Canadian pride thing, but it's like, if we were such a proud country for our athletes, why wouldn't we fund them more? Why wouldn't we have better programs in place for them to succeed, right? And we don't. We just don't. And yeah, we're a Winter Olympics country. I get it. But even when it comes to
we shouldn't be just that, right? We shouldn't be just that. If we have the athletes to do it, that's why something is, inane is like hammer throw. Like you don't think about hammer throw a whole lot because we've never been dominant in the throwing sports. But to have both men's and women's, and I don't know if the training is linked or related, or if we have like a hammer throw, Society of Canada. But that's pretty impressive that we found a man and a woman to win gold in an event we've never won before. So we're doing some things right.
Yeah, but then
or at least the athletes are doing something right. Maybe it's the perception of the athletes themselves. Maybe they don't have the funding or the training, but maybe some of the success that we've had over the last, 1 or 2, maybe 3 Olympics is starting to make those kids believe that they can do more than what a summer Olympian believed they could do in 1998, 2006. I know those aren't Olympic years, but back then, because half of it, when we talk about guys in the NFL and the guys CFL, half of it is just the belief that I belong there. And sure, there takes a lot of training, but you have to believe you can get to that level, to train at that level, and to experience results in that. The Canadians playing hockey, they just assume we're the best in the world. And that's why so many guys can make it to that elite level, plus great training programs and all that stuff. But maybe we're finally turning the corner where, as a nation, kids that are born here really believe that they have an opportunity.
Yeah, maybe. And hopefully so. We did kind of lose to France in basketball today, and I was watching online, and there's been a lot of chatter about the disappointment that our Canadian men's basketball team was. So, we had a few NBA players on that team that didn't show up. Look, our men's basketball team didn't believe, oh, what a choke. Yeah, so they lost to France today. That's the thing about the Olympics. Sometimes you medal in sports that you're not expected to medal in, and sometimes you lose in sports that you're expected to medal in. Like our women's soccer team, despite all the controversy and the scandal that surrounded them going into the Olympics, they were the defending gold medal champions, and they didn't beat Germany last week, right? And that whole story about the big comeback, unfortunately, didn't pan out for the girls, and they're going home unhappy as well, right?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. Well,
I was just going to say, what about some of the other stuff? So we, I guess we can't say we broke the story, but the drones was a big story 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Last week we started talking about males competing in female sports and the rage machine that's been built around it. There's a lot of controversy that's been coming out of these Olympics as well. And I know this is something you talked to me about, that you're like, when the whole thing about the boxer, I can't remember her name, but comes out and is absolutely destroying her opponents. And you're like, you were mad.
So it's happened. So previous to the Olympic boxing event is Iman Khalif. There was an IBF decision that had come down, and there was some video circulating on the internet about a fight that she had fought in 2022 against a Mexican boxer, and it was like, she's a powerful boxer, right? And I guess the story is she was tested by the International Boxing Federation, which is a Russian boxing federation, because she displayed some unusual testosterone levels and unusual features that a lot of people think she's a man. Now, I didn't get into the history of it, but at the time it was pretty shocking. And the initial online, as you meant, the rage of or the wave of rage was that people were saying, well, this is a man competing in women's sport, and she boxed last Thursday. So this was a couple of days after our show. And it was Thursday morning. And I had seen she knocked the Italian in the face, and the Italian girl quit right 40 seconds into the match. And initially the rage was, this is a man competing in women's sport. And a lot of people were making it a trans issue, that this person was a man and that she chose to compete in women's sport. And at first I was kind of on that same page. I was like, well, that's not fair, right? That is not fair. And I was kind of listening to it, but I didn't do enough research. I kind of got swept by the wave of rage without really doing any background. And then, later on in the afternoon, I think even as our texts evolved with you and Trey, as we were talking about, we said, well, we got to talk about this. My perspective changed because this person, Iman Khalif, was born a woman, was raised a woman, was never a man. Yes, she has a physical condition that produces a high level of testosterone, that she displays some features and more power than I guess would be a typical woman. And she chose boxing as her sport, and she can dominate it. She has lost to women in the past. It's not like she just wins every time. But in this case, I guess there's two stories here. One, there's the story of people use this to advance a narrative that might not necessarily have been the narrative, and that's, trans females competing in female sport. And that's not what this case is. And then the other situation is, what do you do when someone has an unfair advantage in sport? It's almost two different things.
If I can jump on this,
go ahead.
on this one. So the whole narrative of the whole trans thing, like Chev, you're always going to get that. You're going to find 10% of the population saying, "Oh, anti-trans, there's an agenda." Then you're going to get 10% saying, trans is beautiful, and in fact, because it's trans, is more beautiful. You get people on the fringes of both sides that just want to run with a narrative.
Yeah.
If you live in Twitter, that's what you're going to get.
Oh yeah.
If you talk to people, what I found the big thing is I'm seeing girls drop out because they've been punched in the face by a person allegedly with XY chromosomes, which is essentially hitting almost like a man. It's a rough thing. Now, I don't think anybody's going to argue that she was raised a man and she tried to find a backdoor loop in there. I think
people were
just have on Twitter 10%. Don't chase the rage of the 10% on either side. You get loonies on the left,
but that 10% was very influential people coming out. This is President Trump. This is Logan Paul. This is J.K. Rowling.
And you can go down the list on both sides, right?
But Sheldon, these people have it. But I'm saying these people have influence, huge influence.
Maybe so. But but now since it's all out there, I think here's the big thing is, how do we, and let's be you and me, let's be the grown-ups in the room and everybody watching this right now. We're the grown-ups. Okay. She's got XY chromosomes. She's going to produce more testosterone. She's going to have maybe not the 30% strength increase that the average male would have over a female, but there's a strength increase. Is that the same thing as fighting a person that went through puberty as a man and crossover and became trans? No, it's not. I don't think it is. I don't
think so either. No,
but it's still, we're not talking tennis with Serena Williams. We're talking a contact sport. And when I see somebody get hit that hard in the face that the girls are just dropping out, I ask myself, oh God, this looks really bad. Is this just a case of Mike Tyson?
But I get it. I get your argument, and I think we're on the same page. Exactly what you said. This is the case of someone that some would consider an unfair advantage. I get it. But in sport, it's the person with the advantage that wins. Michael Phelps was built genetically to be a gold medalist in swimming. I seen the body composition that he has. They showed he was perfectly built to do what he did in the water to win all those gold medals.
Length of arms, lung, rib cage, all that stuff.
Everything.
Yeah.
Michael Phelps would not be a great gymnast. He would not win a medal in gymnastics.
He would not win a bench press competition.
No, he would not. Just like this girl would not win in many of those sports. If you look at the U.S. or the Canadian rugby sevens team that won, they would not be well positioned to be on a balance beam. like you pick your sport based on your genetics. And this
my only challenge to that, and here's the one, and this is like, help me understand this one, because I am the same page, because there's that sprinter, the same thing, born XY, right? And she's just dominating in racing a couple years back, and it was the last time there's a controversy like this. I try to throw this back to men's sports, right? So let's take boxing, for instance. So let's take, Canada's heavyweight contender going into the Olympics. But now let's say that there's a condition that a man can have that turns you into the Incredible Hulk, too much gamma radiation. It turns green and just destroys people, right? Now, if that were a game of chess and some guys had a genetic disposition that made them dominant, God, that's just the future of the human race. But if you've got somebody that's is competing in a combat sport, does that make it different? And I'm not saying it does, but I'm asking the question, does that make it different? Is this something that XX chromosome females have to deal with going against XY? And what would we think if we had to go against somebody that was genetically stronger than us?
But
and what do you do about it?
I don't know what you do about it. I don't think we're going to solve this, but you do that. You see that every day. Look, last week I talked about meeting the mountain. I met the mountain. Now I'm a pretty strong dude.
Yeah.
For average human beings, I'm a strong guy. I'm still very strong. I'm still very big. And I walked into this guy who's 6'10", 450 pounds, that has a 565 kilogram deadlift. If I was in a boxing match with him, we're both heavyweights. I'm 285. He's 410. I'm screwed. He has some sort of genetic advantage. I don't know what to test him for, but he's huge. And so that's competition. It's like anybody that goes against LeBron James in basketball is going to get beat until they're not going against LeBron James. Sometimes that's the luck of the draw. It's like when Tom Brady was in the NFC or the AFC North or AFC East. Everyone says, well, the biggest thing that happened to them was that they ran into Tom Brady. That's why they couldn't win. When it just, that's sport, right? And it sucks. It sucks when you're not the top, when you're not the best. I don't know how you test for genetic conditions, because maybe you open a whole Pandora's box of things.
You do, but do you have to? I don't have the answer. Something looked wrong about it. But at the same time, and it's dangerous. Like I said, it could be dangerous for competition if you have that much of an advantage. Allegedly, I don't know what that advantage is. But I also believe it's dangerous to start saying you can't compete.
Yes,
right.
Super dangerous.
And that balancing line. I mean, this is just something we're talking about 2 or 3 high profile cases in the last 5 years. We're going to have to figure out an answer for.
Well, there's so much going on now in sport. It's not just doping with drugs. There's gene doping that's been going on for years, and it's at the forefront of technology where they can actually alter people's genes, and that's what's coming next.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, Michael Phelps mentioned something the other day. He wants to start seeing lifetime bans for doping, not just 4-year suspensions, or he wants to see, if you cheat, you're gone for good. Did you guys agree with that? Like, if someone cheats now, Michael Phelps, I was following this, and he mentioned, he's like, he won all his gold medals clean. He was the right genetics for the right sport, the right training, the right regimen. For me, when I read that, I kind of felt connected to that, because, I started football very late in my life. I started at 18. I was a string bean when I started football. And in a very short time, I went from nothing to the NFL. And everyone thought I was a cheat. Everyone thought I was on steroids. Everyone thought I was, and even when I was playing, people thought that. Even now, people ask me now if I'm on steroids or some sort of growth hormone. I'm not. And it's not a judgment thing. It's just, I think when you do it cleanly and people think that you are on something, there's 2 things. Some people say, oh, well, why don't you feel glad that, you should take it as a compliment that people think you're on steroids. There's that. But then the flip side is, people think you couldn't do it on your own. And that's a hard thing, especially when you've done it cleanly, right? So when I saw this Michael Phelps thing where he's like, people should be banned for a lifetime, I kind of thought about it. I don't know what my take is, but it almost seems right, because we're getting to a very dangerous time where a whole country, we talked about it last week, when Russia doped the whole country, and it was a systemic and institutional doping. And yet all their athletes still competed in the next Olympics.
Yeah.
So do you think we're at a point where, in order to make it an actual consequence, we got to make it such that their career is ended if they cheat? What do you think?
There's got to be consequences. Now, sometimes because you're in a program, it's not always the athlete's fault. A lot of times it is, right? But a lot of times you're not in the Russian program if you're not following the program. And you could probably say the same thing for a lot of like U.S. colleges back in the 80s and 90s, or any track team around. I'm not disparaging all track teams, but there's some sports that you got to believe there's a lot of doping going on.
Oh,
right? Caught once and out forever. That's serious, right? There's got to be a bit of nuance in there, but until you start putting serious consequences down, you're just accepting the status quo, which is not cheating if you get away with it, right?
Right.
And that's where we're at right now.
But we're at a point in sport where we'll put lifetime bans for gambling, but 4-year bans for doping.
Yeah.
And I think the precedent of the systemic cat and mouse game that goes on between the doping and the masking and the how to beat the test type programs that are going on. It is a cat and mouse game that the cheaters play with the organizations, and the organizations always seem to be behind. But then what happens is there's always such shame to the people and the countries that get caught. And so there's almost an argument for that lifetime ban, because then if people see that as a true consequence, that if you get caught, you don't compete anymore, that will give people pause for thought. I think. I don't know.
I think so. Martin Lee chimes in. Cheat once, you're done. No mercy. And I think you're right. Like, I think that's too harsh. But if you don't do that, nothing's ever going to change. Right.
No,
and then maybe have a strict appeal process. But you think about this: if I'm in a program and I'm forced to go down this road, and I lose my Olympic eligibility, somebody in the organization should lose their job, and I should be able to sue, and I should be able to fight for my right to get back. But heads do have to roll. Somebody's got to be responsible for it. Otherwise, again, it is literally not cheating if you don't get caught, and it's been that way for the last 50 years. You either keep rolling with that and accept it, you open it up to all doping, or you take a more, principled stance on it. I just don't think the world's ready for that, because here's the other side of the equation too. Do you want to see times? Do you think the people watching want to see less superior athletes and less superior programs? Because that's the other thing. Are we being hypocrites?
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
was baseball better with Barry Bonds, or is it better now?
Yeah, no, I don't want to see cheaters prosper. I just don't think that's cool, because again, it does put, we talked about Canada being an underfunded nation. It puts countries and people that don't have the means at a disadvantage, because the cheaters have all the resources.
Well, listen, and Jamin brings up a great point here too. What happens with the Canadian soccer team then? You're super passionate about doping, right? And I get it, and I'm actually inspired by what you're saying. I love it. But what about when my coaches are clearly cheating, giving us a competitive advantage?
Yeah, no,
do I as an athlete lose my job, or do those never work in FIFA or Olympics ever again?
I think a lot of people were really they thought the punishment that the IOC imposed, the 6-point penalty, was very harsh. I thought it was great, and the women fought back from it. Right, like, it wasn't an easy path to get to the quarterfinals. Like, they're pretty much done before they stepped on the pitch, but they overcame it. So there was a punishment. It wasn't just a slap on the wrist. It wasn't, they got punished, and punished pretty harshly. The only worst thing that could have happened is if they were banned from the tournament, which could have thrown everything out of bounds. So I think what they did was great. And I think the woman proved something by fighting back from it. And you were all over it. You were happy that they were winning, and I was happy too, but it was one of those bittersweet things. But
it was thrilling.
I do think for that case, the punishment fit the crime. When it comes to cheating, doping, and it's the doping and everything, for me, it really sets a tough example for kids. If they see their favorite athletes doping and cheating, I think it sets a precedent.
And I know when we played, I hated seeing that guy come into camp that
Oh yeah,
was doing it, right?
yeah.
And you knew he was out for your job, and you had to beat him. You had to beat him cleanly.
And
right?
every year you
Which
got older. Every year you got
it got
older,
harder.
and every year that guy, not the same guy, but that type of guy, was younger.
Yeah.
And juiced up. And and so there's so many misconceptions, right? You say, oh yeah, those guys that juice get hurt all the time. Well, they don't necessarily get hurt all the time. It works for some people, it works for some athletes. I just think for games, especially on the scale of what the Olympics are, they should be clean. That's kind of where it should be. I don't know if it's a lifetime ban like Michael Phelps proposes, but it needs to be something harsh enough that people will actually consider not doing it.
And I'll tell you what, then I'm with you, and it should be clean. So we've got to take our dope testing seriously. We have to take the repercussions seriously, and we have to get rid of some of these elites on top where they're making it all about money, where they're just almost bankrupting cities, where people are getting wealthy off of it at the top. There's just too much about money and status among certain people. And we're losing respect for the athletes at the lowest levels that are forced into these obviously slanted competitions.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
I mean, is there a way to just blow it up and start over again? I'd support that. I don't think there is.
Yeah,
but that'd be a big move.
Hey, Sheldon, guess what time it is? It's almost
time for our picks.
Are we just going straight to the picks to the end of the show? Is that where we're going?
What do you want to do? You tell me, Chev.
Well, I think we should take a quick little break here. Let's take a little break, and then if we come back,
you just trick me into overtime? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we got 4 minutes. How do you jump right into the picks? What do you guys want to do? I mean, we talked.
All right, overtime.
Okay, so listen, we'll take a quick break here. When we get back, we'll just kind of recap a little bit of the stories from the CFL. Not recap the games, but just kind of what we liked and what we didn't like. We'll get to our picks, and then we'll get you guys out of here. Thanks for joining us. It's the Ride with Chevy and Nasty. We'll be back in about 40 seconds.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
So why I love the CFL, Sheldon, is it's fun and it's exciting. This weekend, the NFL had their first preseason game, and they did the new kickoff rules. And the kickoff that they kind of stole from the USFL, where they line up the guys on the 30-yard line and less contact. It's a hybrid, and I know they're doing it for player safety, and it's evolving the game so that players can last longer because a lot of injuries. But the Edmonton Saskatchewan game this week started in Saskatchewan with a kickoff return touchdown by Mario Alfred. And CFL football is the one professional league where you can still find a kickoff that matters.
Yeah.
And imagine being in Saskatchewan at Mosaic, for a kickoff for a game with that crowd, and then just kicking it off with a kickoff return touchdown. That must have been an amazing experience. And that was the first play of the game on Saturday between the Elks. And that led to, I guess, one of the stories we wanted to talk about in the CFL was Trey Ford. You talked about him last week on your Nasty Thoughts, how it took 9 weeks for Edmonton to bring him in last year. Or no, oh yeah, but this
Well,
this year, yeah, like it was
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
eight weeks into the season, and they finally give him a shot halfway through the game. What does he do? He scores 3 touchdowns on 3 possessions. I think it was 4 touchdowns total last week, and then he comes in against Saskatchewan. Sheldon, 42-31.
And not as a novelty quarterback.
No,
I mean, he didn't go in there and run around the whole game. Yeah, he had some great runs. He extended plays with his legs, but he was on point, on target. He was hitting middle crossers. He was hitting guys leaking out to the flats, long outs, and deep balls. This guy has picked up his game. And, it's one of those things. And now Chris Jones is obviously gone. But that mindset, I think we have to make sure we're getting rid of as well. Canadian kid who's a novelty guy that can run. This guy can play quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this guy, if you look back on it, if this were as big as business as it was in the NFL, as it is in the NFL, the biggest dollars, as many people employed, and you look back at what was their record going into this? 0-8?
Yeah.
0-7? 0-8?
0-8.
If they had started him, and I know McLeod Bethel Thompson did a nice job. He's a good quarterback. He's a good passer, but he's not winning with the Eskimos or with the Elks.
Yep.
If you put Trey in for even 4 of those games, you don't think they'd have 2 or 3 more wins? Maybe. So, for me, it was really exciting to see, even though it was against my Riders, to see Trey Ford execute the way he did, exciting as he was. It opened up everything. The ground game going. They had
Javon Lee. He had
3 touchdowns, over 100 yards rushing.
169 yards rushing. Like
169 yards rushing in the CFL.
That was
do you think the CFL builds ground games to build and game plans to run for 170 yards? No, this happened because you've got the defense so off balance. He threw for just under 300 yards. It was an amazing game.
It was an amazing game. That was the only pick I got right. And you go back, you say, sometimes a coaching change turns a team around. Sometimes it's quarterback change. And maybe if Coach Jones might have made that move earlier, maybe his job would have been saved again. Because I would venture to say, and a lot of people say this, last year, Trey Ford is the reason that some of those coaches in Edmonton still had their job, because he won so many games and sold so many games. But he looked impressive against a very, very good Saskatchewan Roughriders team. He looked super impressive. He had great support, like we said, from Javon Leake. There was this stat out there they were showing it, and I seen it on the internet, on Instagram, where they had this kind of tracker as Javon Leake was running. It said that he got up to 22.2 miles per hour running. Apparently that makes him the fastest. I don't know how they track this, but apparently that makes him the fastest player in football, because I believe Tyreek Hill got clocked once at 20 miles an hour, and they got this guy at 22.2. So apparently we have the fastest player in pro football right in Edmonton, in Javon Leake. But
it certainly looked at it like it on Saturday night.
Yeah, three touchdowns. That's a big game. So yeah, that was a big story. The other big story, Sheldon, in the CFL was the Stamps. So yeah, here it is.
Comeback.
Fastest DK Metcalf and Tyreek Hill, 22.2 miles an hour. So it makes him fast. Maybe that'll get him an NFL look next year. Hey, by the way, we're in overtime. Just saying, just so you know, officially it's overtime. I don't know if Trey needs to put the slide. There you go. Just so you know, just want to make sure everyone knows, if you're sticking with us, it's the Ride with Chevy and Nasty. We're in overtime. We're talking a little CFL. The Stampeders comeback win. It took till the fourth quarter to wake up, but they come back against Toronto. I have to say, the man that did it for them again, clutch guy, Rene Paredes, right? 2 possessions at the end of the game. He kicks a field goal to put them ahead, and then kicks another one. It's one of those things when you have a guy that all you got to do is cross the 50-yard line, and you know your guy's going to make a kick. It sure takes the pressure off your offense, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is it a winning strategy to rely on your kicker as much as the Stamps do? No, but if you've got it, it is a tool in your toolbox, and you got to use them. And I tell you, Stamps fans are lucky to watch this guy. I can't believe how many years he's been in the CFL at this point.
Yeah.
Right? I still remember him coming in as a rookie, but this guy's been responsible for so many close wins that you just can't keep track of it.
Yeah, no, and they had a great game. They had lots of production from Jalen Philpott. He was great. Clark Barnes had a nice game. Jake Mayer played well. He threw a couple of picks, but he had a pretty good game. I saw the highlights. There was one amazing touchdown, and I can't remember who it was. It was a Stampeders receiver. The second effort that we saw, it was Cam Eccles. Jake Mayer throws a ball up. He makes the most unbelievable catch behind a defender who had his hands in his face, drops to the ground, and then has the wherewithal to realize he wasn't touched and jumps over the two defenders for the touchdown. It was such a great play.
Wow.
I think that's going to be a candidate for highlight of the year. But yeah, you know what? The Stamps had a good game. I said last week. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I did. I watched some of the highlights and so I didn't get a real feel for the game. It looked dismal in the first half. In fact, some of the guys I was out with this weekend turned it off. They were like, it was shocking to see them come back. And I look at it, and it's not even that impressive of numbers, except for Reggie Bagleton, the old vet, still getting it done. Nobody else had more than 4 receptions, and nobody stands out to me as like that star or that burner. But I think, are they maybe starting to find an identity? When you talk about those extra efforts, those are totally based off of belief and want to. Are they starting to develop that attitude yet? Or
well, I think we've seen that in spurts. There's a couple of games. The last game I went to when they played BC, that extra effort, those yards after catch, they're there, but in some games, the ball is just not getting to the receiver's hands. And in some games they were. I thought that looking at this game, they had a real good variety of plays. They went to a variety of players. Like if you look, Jake Mayer spread the ball around. Yeah. Like you said, Bagleton got a lot of those catches, but
8 receivers got touches though in that game, right?
Yeah, so he really spread the ball around, and I thought, like they do that, hand the ball off behind the line of scrimmage to Jalen Philpott. They do that a bit, so a lot of change of direction stuff. And yeah, Toronto last week, I said this was going to be a big game for Cameron Dukes to see if he could be the guy, because obviously with Chad Kelly coming back at some point, Cameron Dukes is either going to be a backup or he's going to be on someone's wish list to be their next quarterback. And he did an okay job. I did notice he ran a lot, and he did some good things with his legs. He rushed 12 carries for 95 yards. So more on the running side of things, but he still did a pretty decent job. I mean, it was 27-23, the game finished, but happy for the Stamps. Always happy to see the local team win. And then the other surprise of the week, without breaking down the game too much, before I got on the airplane on Thursday, watching the BC Lions absolutely choke against the Blue Bombers. It was terrible. It was absolutely horrendous to watch, and I didn't expect that at all. I thought BC was looking good, especially early on in the season. I know they fumbled a little bit against the Stamps, but I thought, gosh, you know what? BC was going to be the team this year, and it's not looking like that now. It's not.
They're showing those chinks in the armor, and it's one of those things. Every year I say it. You do not know who the contenders are. You don't know what a team has until Labor Day. But every year I fall trap to it, right? I get so excited about the shiny new penny. Who looks good coming out of the gates? And I'm not writing off BC and Vernon Adams, but now they've had a couple of those, right? They've had 2 or 3 losses now to good teams, but where they just didn't look like they had it together. I'm trying to figure out if BC threw a stinker or if this is the old, Blue Bombers, old quarterback, old receivers, old linemen. Maybe they're just too old, or maybe they still just experienced enough that they can bring this thing together, figure out the team. Additions like Lucky Whitehead I thought were brilliant.
Yeah.
And they're doing all of this most of the season without Kenny Lawler. I mean, maybe they're just starting to find their way now. Maybe they will go on a roll, but I'm not making any predictions about it until after Labor Day.
Yeah, you know what? I just all I want to say on this one is I was shocked. Like,
Yeah,
I-
definitely shocked.
I'm not prior to last week. I wasn't saying the BC Lions were unbeatable. I saw them lose to the Stamps in a nail biter. They lost one at the beginning of the season, but I didn't think I would see the day where this year's BC Lion team would get shut out, would throw up a goose egg. I did not see that. So that to me is
He was
very
throwing
shocking.
300 plus yards in the first half.
Yeah, like
back-to-back weeks.
Like I'm looking at Justin McIntosh. He has zero receptions, 0 yards, and this is a guy that 2 weeks in a row he put up over 200 yards.
Yeah,
and now he's got 0. Like it's almost like their whole team didn't show up, and that's weird. Like that is absolutely like Vernon Adams completed 8 passes. Like
less than 50%.
And again, we were talking about the week before that Winnipeg was kind of on a downslide, like the end of the dynasty.
Maybe Collaros has just run out of gas, right?
Yeah, that's what we were saying. So this was totally shocking to me. I mean, BC Lions need to figure it out because Labor Day is coming up, and you don't want to start questioning yourself. You know how it is, eh? When you're a good team.
Even a little thing like picking up Lucky Whitehead. I think he was in BC last.
Yeah,
right. He's been on the practice roster. He's been almost like, okay, well, they signed him. Maybe he's a dud too. No, he's in the lineup. 6 catches. They hit him 6 times, 56 yards, almost a 10-yard average. And then you look at Strevler. He had 9 carries for 25 yards. You know what that tells me? Production on first down, getting close, and then having a guy like Strevler that can drive it forward. Maybe they are finding the winning formula. But a guy like Lucky Whitehead was an amazing pickup for them. They've already got a good receiving core, but with some injuries, I think maybe that's all they needed.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, like I said, I'm still quite shocked. This week we got another week of picks coming up. What was our
record? How do we do? Where are we at right now? Because I literally just got into town here. Where are we at right now?
Trey, pull us up. Let us know where we're at right now. So right now, what is it?
Last week, Chevy 1-3.
I was terrible last week.
2-2. I wasn't much better.
Yeah, but I'm still at 15-21. So I got.
You know what? I think I picked Saskatchewan over the Elk. I think that was the mistake I made last week.
Yeah, see, and I picked the Elks. That was the only one I picked. I went with Bo Levi. I thought he was going to pull it off in Montreal. Montreal is playing a backup quarterback.
You got to stop picking Bo Levi, man.
Well, I just thought, going into Montreal, they're playing a backup quarterback. I just thought Bo could do it. So, and now he's playing Montreal again. I don't know what to do. So we'll start with this week. I mean, Thursday night we got Saskatchewan playing the Red Blacks. Who you got?
Well, I'll tell you, Drew Brown's been playing some lights out football, but I don't think this is the kind of Saskatchewan team that are going to see the same breakdowns that they saw versus the Elk. They're going to be playing a more conventional team. They're going to be hungry and looking for a win. This one is in Ottawa, though. But you know what? I'm going to go with the Riders.
Riders. I got the Red Blacks coming off a bye week.
It's not a bad pick. Yeah.
They did well 2 weeks ago against the Stamps. Pretty convincing fashion.
Drew Brown's looking good.
Drew Brown's looking good. I got the Red Blacks at home. Calgary, Toronto in the rematch on Friday. Who do you got?
Oh boy, this is a tough one. God, that's a tough. I hate these back-to-backs because it's so hard for the same team to win twice in a row.
Yeah.
The Stamps came back late, but you know what? I think the Argonauts have what it takes. I think that was an anomaly. They let that one get away from them a little bit. I think the Stamps still have a little ways to go, and they can't rely on 3 field goals, 4 field goals, 5 field goals from Paredes every week. So I'm going to go with the Argos.
I'll go Stamps. I think the Stamps got a little bit of confidence after that win, the way they won. They gritted it out. Now they just got to get up. They got to have a good start. It's 2 weeks in a row. They don't have a good start. I think they're due for a good start. And if they get a good start, I think they got the team to finish. All right. Hamilton and Montreal. Is this the week that I pick against Hamilton and Montreal and Hamilton wins? I don't know.
Hamilton hasn't showed me the winning culture there yet. So I got to go with the home team, Montreal.
Oh my God.
Plus at some point, Fajardo's got to come back, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if he's back this week. I know they lost their other quarterback. Caleb Evans is out now.
That's right.
I'm going to pick Montreal. Montreal.
Even with Williams or whatever.
I'm picking Montreal. Montreal.
All right, we got the same one there.
And BC Edmonton.
This is a tough one for me. As great as Trey Ford looked in the last 5 quarters of play, Vernon Adams, I do not see coming out looking that shell shock 2 weeks in a row. Also, you know what? When you take a look at the defenses, the Edmonton Elk do not have the same caliber of defense that the Bombers or the Riders, the teams that the Lions have lost to in the past. I love Trey Ford. He's going to do some great things. We're going to see a good crowd, I hope, in Edmonton, but it's going to be the BC Lions.
Yeah, I agree. The folks in Edmonton are excited for the change, but I think I'm picking BC Lions in this one too. I just was so shocked with that big 0. I can't see them throwing up another 0. They got to come out strong. I'm picking BC for this week. I think that's going to be a good one. Sheldon, I don't know if Trey can play it, but last year, if you remember when we did the show, I guess it was last NFL season, we talked about Tyson Bagent. He was the quarterback. His dad is a world champion arm wrestler. We had played a great clip about his dad arm wrestling, the NFL Network interview. And then Tyson goes on, backup kid from a D2 school. There's a documentary on him, how he was basically, went to this high school in the middle of the opioid belt in the U.S., the Oxycontin crisis in the coal mines. And he kind of rose up. He could have gone to, actually, I don't believe he got any offers from any big schools. And he went to a really small school, that comeback story that we like, kind of like the Brock Purdy, except he didn't go to the Super Bowl. He was the Bears backup quarterback last year. He stepped in for Justin Fields. He did quite admirably. And there was quite a polarizing debate as to whether the Bears should keep Fields and get rid of Bagent. And then, in the end, the Bears got rid of Justin Fields. They drafted Caleb Williams, I believe, from
USC?
Caleb Williams? USC. Yeah. And so, anyways, there's a clip that I guess after the preseason game on the weekend, he got asked about his offseason and if the Bears were going to pick up another quarterback, how you'd feel about it. Trey, can you play that clip? Let's see if we can get this.
Yeah, I didn't really think too much about it. I was too busy grinding my absolute face off in the off season. But whatever they were going to do, that's completely up to them. I can't control that. But yeah, I was just excited to come back. Whoever was going to be in the QB room was going to be in the QB room. Nothing was going to change on my end though. But yeah, like you said, it feels good to know that they have some, they have confidence in me, and that they like what I was able to do last year, and hopefully they're being able to see the strides that I've made in the off season and going into year 2.
What was the hardest grinding your face off thing that you did?
June 19th, shout out to one of my best friends, Derek Gallagher, 1 mile burpee broad jump. Hour and 7 minutes. Let's go.
Is that for a mile?
Burpee broad jump. Burpee broad jump. 1 mile.
How many calories did you burn out?
I don't know. I ate a lot after that. It was nice.
What would you eat afterwards? Where'd you go?
I went to Betty's. Shout out to Shepherdstown, West Virginia. Went to Betty's restaurant. I think I just got 6 eggs and bacon with some toast. I might not be getting better necessarily at football when I'm doing a workout like that. However, just the mental edge that it gives me, finding out, what I can endure versus what the next man can endure, in a sense gives me a little mental edge when I show up to things like this and people start complaining about our schedule. I can kind of have somewhere in the back of my head that I've done things far worse than this. That I can handle really kind of anything that's thrown at me and be able to just keep the main thing, let it flow off the shoulders and just kind of, react to what happens next. So I went to Betty's. Shout out to Shepherdstown.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's what you're talking. So I never saw that. That is crazy, man.
Yeah, I just picked that up before the show, and I thought, yeah, you know what? To bring back a story from old Tyson Bagent, just an awesome story. Like, how can you not get behind this guy? Like,
and we talked about it before, like with Vernon Adams versus Jake Mayer. Like, for me, I always look at what the quarterback or potential leader, any guy in any position that's competing, has to say. Right. And when he gives me a long-winded story about how important the game is and how he loves the team and the fans, I know this guy's head's in the wrong place. This guy, well, what'd you do? So that was so specifically so badass and hardcore. Well, a mile broad jump burpee.
Can you imagine?
Guys, can you imagine that? Just picture right now. Just drop down, do a burpee, spring up into a long jump. It builds that core strength so much. And like you said, it's that mental resilience to know that you can do things that other people puke just thinking about.
Yeah, you know what? When I saw that and I want to try it. I don't know if I got it.
It was like sickeningly. I do too. In fact, I'm coaching. I'm coaching bantam football tomorrow. I think they're going to try it.
Well,
But
maybe not a mile, maybe about 50 yards of it. But
oh, dude, 20 yards of it.
yeah, no, I just love his story and I love the kid because we always pull for those underdog stories. The Doug Flutie's, everything that we love about the CFL. This kid brought to the NFL, right? And he won some games last year. He didn't have a lights out season, but he did a great job while he was in there. And just the backstory, just the work ethic, just where he comes from. There's some really cool elements there. And another cool element to this story that I found that I really enjoyed and I want to share is, I was doing a little bit more research and find out that Kerry Joseph, former Saskatchewan Roughriders quarterback, Grey Cup winning quarterback, is the quarterback's coach in Chicago. And they're talking about how he could be the perfect fit for Caleb Williams, their number 1 overall draft pick from USC. And I thought, gosh, like, why? So I'm reading this article and I didn't realize, like I respect Kerry Joseph. In fact, him and we had a pregame beef, one game here in Calgary, but I respect him. He was a great player in the league, great ambassador. I mean, the Riders fans love him for what he did.
Hard to sack. He was a big dude.
He was my first sack in the CFL when he played for the Ottawa Renegades. Yeah. He was my first sack in my first game. But I read his story, and this guy played 4 years in the NFL as a safety before he ever came to Canada to play quarterback. He had played from like 98 or even before that till about 2001 as a safety in the NFL, then went to NFL Europe, I believe. And then somewhere along the way, the Ottawa Renegades brought him to Canada in 2003. He started as the 4th string quarterback. I think their starter was Dan Crowley at the time. And somehow he made his way to the top of the lineup. And from there, I mean, we know the story. He went on to Saskatchewan Roughriders. Was it the 2009 Grey Cup they won, or what year was it they won?
Oh, yeah, so sometime around then. I thought he might have even won one back when I was playing. Like, I know he's gotten to them before.
2008
Didn't he win with the Riders. It was like 2008.
2008 was Stampeders because I was on the 2008 team. I believe
it could have been 2007. It was the year Kevin Glenn got injured with the Bombers. But anyway, yeah. But he was an absolute stud of a quarterback. Like,
yeah,
he's the kind of guy. He came
huge.
He was cerebral. He was he could read defenses. He could hurt you in multiple ways, and you completely forget that he started off as a DB, or that he even played in NFL Europe. I didn't know he was in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, and in NFL Europe, he was started as a quarterback and wound up playing in defense. Just such a fascinating story because you don't hear about that often. Like, for him to play on defense, he played 4 years with the Seahawks as a defensive back, and then come and have this long, storied career in the CFL as a quarterback. That's like two different people's careers. Like a four-year career in the NFL is a good career for many people. And here he is, a guy that did 4 years and then goes on to CFL, wins Grey Cups. I believe, did he not win one in Toronto as well? I know he finished off in Toronto, but yeah, no, good for him. He's found employment with the Chicago Bears. Another Canadian connection in Chicago while we're on that page. Brett Rippon, nephew of Mark Rippon, Super Bowl winning quarterback, Canadian. Brett is a Canadian on the Chicago Bears. So yeah, just a couple of interesting connections there that I thought when this Tyson Bagent story came across my page. So yeah, the NFL, I guess, is kicking off. Preseason week 2 is going to start this weekend. And, all the comparisons between the CFL and the NFL always go on with the hardcore CFL fans in Canada and the hardcore NFL fans. I still say, I love the NFL. There's a lot going on there, but game wise, and I mentioned it before, the CFL has it all, from the kicks to the returns, to the action, to the passing plays, the size of the field. I love the CFL more. I know everyone always asks me NFL or CFL. Of course, with the NFL, you got the best athletes there. The best of the best are in the NFL. And obviously, the stadiums are always full and they do such a good job with everything around the game, from the stats to the fantasy football even for those that gamble, everything is there. But I have to say, like, for where my money's, like, for where my entertainment value is, the CFL is it for me. You played both sets of rules, Sheldon. You played in U.S. college and you played obviously in the CFL. For you as a player, where did you prefer playing?
Mine might be for different reasons. I prefer playing the American rules just because when the quarterback broke the pocket, you didn't have to run as far. Like, literally, my biggest thing when I came back to the CFL, that the size of the field blew my mind. Like, I'd only played high school football for 3 years, and I was down in the States for 5, and it blew my mind just the difference in the size of the field. But then. And I also like the drop back as a pass rusher. I like hitting. I like knowing where the quarterback was on every play. But from a watching the sport game, there's no doubt NFL is the best of the best. It's predictable, and it's predictable how amazing the athletes are on there. The CFL has some amazing athletes, but it's a more exciting. There's a more factor of randomness just because of the size of that field. But for me, the number one thing that keeps me going back to the CFL is the Canadian content. And there's no doubt NFL is the best league in the world. It's the best broadcast. I love everything about the NFL. But I also like watching the Philpots.
Yeah.
Right. I like watching these kids out of UFC that make that extra dive over top of the two DBs to get into the end zone. Like I know that wasn't a Canadian kid, but I love watching guys play where it really means something to them. And there's something about, it's almost like for me, like, what's better, NBA or college basketball? Yeah, NBA. Mm-hmm. But come on, March Madness. Yeah. And to me, something about the CFL brings out like that part of the sport to me, where I don't look down on it. It's not the NFL, but it is good football played by good football players. It's an exciting product. And it's a homegrown product. So, I'll take
my wish for the CFL is that we had more content, and content being more teams, so that we can have more exciting games. Because the one thing that I do have a hard time, like right now, you got games going on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's great in terms of if you can't watch on one day, you can at least watch on another. But the one thing I love about the NFL, on a Sunday, if I'm watching a dud of a game, I can switch to another game that's going well. And if you catch if the one game of the week you catch on a Friday night turns out to be a dud, you either tune in and you stick with it, or you don't, right? There are not many options. So I wish there was somehow an opportunity for more content. And I know that, you get into expansion and all that, but the other type of content the CFL needs is the fun stuff, is the stuff that you see the NFL putting out, like again, we talked about with one rights holder being TSN, there's only one rights holder that is producing content, whereas the NFL has everyone producing content, from Fox to CBS to the NFL Network. They've got so much content out there, and there's so much you can consume if you love that league. And the more content that's out there, the more that gets out there, and the more people you attract. And I think, for me, that's what's missing. And I know everyone talks about the expansion to the U.S. being failed. They always say, they should have never gone to the States. And I just think they went to the wrong places. They went too far south. Like, they went to Birmingham, Memphis, and Shreveport. These are places where people couldn't even point Canada out on a map. Canada's so foreign. And people think that's funny. Like, if you have not been to the deep south in the United States, you don't understand that if you go and ask an everyday person where Canada is on a map of North America, they would have no clue. And so when you ask them to buy into Canadian football, it would be the same as me playing Aussie rules football in Canada. It doesn't compute.
But if you went to Boise, if you went to Moscow, Idaho, if you went to Grand Forks, North Dakota, or whatever, Bismarck, or someplace where they can watch their UND guys or NDSU guys, or
you could
whatever,
get
right?
you could get, listen,
the Vandals.
if they're getting 15,000 people in a stadium now in
Buffalo.
Canada, I bet you could get 15,000 people in a northern U.S. state, Portland, Oregon, somewhere in Washington. You know, like
And I promise you, it'll be the same thing that it is up here. When I talk about local content, when they can watch their guys that they loved that didn't get to the NFL, but got to continue playing and kick those Canadian kids' asses, right? Or the rivalry that would build between these northern cities, right?
Yeah, and I think this is the problem. When the CFL expanded south, the problem was that they expanded to places where they thought they can get a lot of talent. Because in the South, in the U.S., there's a lot of football talent. You know, they got the fastest kids in the SEC, and I think that's what they thought. They could play football down there. They get the best players there. But if you're building a league, you got to put it where there's the most people that would watch. And I think that's why Baltimore was so successful. The most northern team is the team that was so successful. The only reason they left town for Montreal was because they were awarded that Ravens franchise, and then the CFL left the U.S. But I do believe that if you have places, like you said, somewhere in Michigan, somewhere in Ohio, Pittsburgh, those are football states, and you can get exactly what you said, Sheldon. I think there would be success. And then the
Well,
CFL,
I actually said Bismarck, North Dakota, which might be setting my eyes on too small of a town, but you know what I mean, though. Those,
definitely northern, where they know where Canada is, where they go to Canada, where they've been to Canada, and like you said, they can create those rivalries. And I think that's where they missed the mark. And because they missed the mark so badly, they are so scared to even have that conversation. You know, they briefly broached it during the COVID or the pandemic when the XFL wanted to do some work with it. We never heard what the talks were, but they talked off. But yeah, I really think that for the CFL to get to its next step, it's not to expand into Europe and a European draft. It's not a Mexican draft. They really have to find a way to create more content. And if that means a team or two in the U.S., in the northern state, I think you got to take a chance. Because how else do you grow? You can't put a team in Red Deer, could you? You put a team. I don't think so.
If you can put it in Bismarck, you can put it in Saskatoon. That's all I got to say. But you know, Chev, I'll tell you what, I love it. I love your passion for it. I'm fine with the CFL where it's at right now. I would love to find a way to get one or two more teams. The problem is that we're talking Maritimes, which is as far away as Calgary to Toronto, again to Toronto to the Maritimes, and that's going to be a tough sell. But guys, I'll tell you what, those of you that stuck around for overtime tonight, man, we really appreciate it joining. Chevy and I both had I haven't talked to you since the last show, so I'm super thrilled to get back together. I'm super thrilled to have survived my 50th birthday, and I'm thrilled to have survived the hailstorm. Mostly I'm just thrilled that you guys joined in tonight. So guys, thanks so much for watching. I promise you this, we're going to be back next week, same time, same station. And you know what? Drop us a line on our socials. Anything you guys see out there that you guys want to chat about, let us know, and we're going to make sure that we get it to it. But once again, thanks for joining us right here on The Ride.